but I want to welcome everyone who's here to the Engage Talent. It's Xplore Employment's first virtual open house via Community Living Oakville in partnership with ODN, the Ontario Disability Employment Network. And I know this event has been in the works for a very long time because our first conversations about it started pre-COVID, and we were talking about doing an in-person event. So it's wonderful to have everyone here who's joined. I'm Pam Damoff. I'm the Member of Parliament for Oakville North Burlington, but more importantly, I'm a longtime friend of Community Living Oakville, which long predates me being a Member of Parliament. So it's an honor for me to be invited to be the MC for this event today. We're really happy to have everybody here. We're celebrating the official grand opening of Xplore Employment, which is Community Living Oakville's employment services team, to celebrate our very supportive employers in our community, and also to share ways in which businesses can enhance hiring practices to maximize business potential. So a few housekeeping items. If everyone could make sure that they're on mute throughout the presentations, we want to make sure that we minimize background noise and ringing phones and barking dogs. If you have any questions, there's a chat box at the bottom. You can type your question in there. You can click on the raise hand feature at the bottom, or you can also just raise your hand, and we'll try to answer all the questions during the question period. And also, please note this session is being recorded. So I wanted to just very briefly explain why I feel inclusive employment is so important. It's not just the right thing to do, it's also good for business and good for the bottom line. A few years ago, I held a roundtable for employers and just to educate them around the benefits of inclusive employment. And Mark Wafer, who he used to own a number of Tim Hortons stores, was in attendance. And he talked about the benefits to his business for by hiring people with disabilities, things like attendance. His people who lived with disabilities never missed work. And as a result, his other employees started having better attendance. He had better retention rates, so he wasn't retraining employees all the time. So it was actually really good for his bottom line. And as he says, almost every single person in a community knows someone with a disability. And if they see that you're an employer who's also hiring people living with disabilities, then they're going to tend to frequent your business. Many people at Community Living will remember Stephen Muir. Stephen moved to Ottawa to follow his heart. He used to work for Kevin Flynn, the MPP for Oakville, and when he moved up to Ottawa, I hired him to come in one day a week. Unfortunately, since COVID, we haven't been able to have Stephen come in because our office has been closed. But I also have had Karina Scally working in my office. And Karina is someone who is just an incredible young lady, just like Stephen. But Karina was unable to find paid employment. And I think people living with disabilities are the last segment of society where we think it's okay not to pay them for their work. And that has to change. So Karina is an example of someone who is incredibly talented, is amazing with young children, and yet had not been able to find paid employment in her chosen profession, which was as an early childhood educator. So I was able to help her, connect her with someone, and I've seen the benefits not just for her, but also for me and her employer in ensuring that she was employed. So I'm excited that Lexus is on the panel. Their hiring came about as a result of a coffee with Frank Appa from Lexus, who happens to know Andre Dury, who works at Community Living, and I made the connection with them, and now they're here on a panel talking about the positive benefits. So we're going to start with a wonderful young lady, Anaya Chambers Ribero. And Anaya is a young woman who's supported by Xplore Employment, and she's currently working at Halton Healthcare, Oakville Trafalgar Memorial Hospital. So Anaya, I'm going to turn it over to you.
You can take your mask off.
Hi. Just to let you all know, I do have a little trouble with reading, so if that just to let you guys know. I started my Halton healthcare work experience in 2019 during the Project Search program. And after that, that's where I met my job coach, Callahan. Project Search is a one-year program for kids with learning difficulties. In the program, we rotate doing 3 10-week internships around the hospital. And for me, the program helps us learn work skills and to show that kids with disabilities can have a normal job and work anywhere, just like anyone else. And there is nothing stopping us from getting any job and our dream jobs. We want. After I graduated, that's when I met Callahan from Community Living Oakville. Me and her applied to many companies for a job and got turned down, but Callahan never gave up on me. We heard about the pandemic support assistance and we jumped right on that. I wouldn't be here right now at the hospital or talking to you right now without her by my side. Callahan is not just my job coach. We are a family and a team, and she supports me by checking in on me, and when there is a new task added on to my job that's been assigned to me, she's always there to help me, and for that I'm really grateful for her. Thank you for letting me have the chance to share my experience with you. Thank you.
Good job.
Anaya, that was terrific. That was just amazing. Well done. And I'm so glad your experience is going well there. And I think you highlighted so well the importance of your job coach and the benefit it brings not just to you, but also to your employer. So good job, well done. Thank you so much for sharing your story. I'd like to now introduce just an amazing woman, Alexandra Murray, who's the Director of Services and Quality Enhancement at Community Living Oakville. And Alexandra, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Pam. And thank you, Anaya. That was wonderful hearing from you. Thank you, Pam. So I'd like to begin by taking a moment to introduce you all to our Xplore Employment team. Our team is led by manager Jenny Parisi and 5 very talented employment specialists: Ali Ibrahim, Andre Dury, Carolyn McCleister, Lizelle Jonathan, Tracy Morrow. These staff work closely with over 150 people supported and various employers across Halton region. Over the years, we have developed our service offerings to not only include supportive and competitive employment, however, a pre-employment training program for those entering the world of work, and spearhead in partnership with Halton Healthcare, Oakville Trafalgar Hospital, and the Halton School Board, Project Search, an employment training program for students in their last year of high school. We also want to acknowledge all of our current partners and thank all of our current employers who hold value in inclusive employment and have made a commitment to diversifying the workplace. As the world of work evolves, we too must tailor our services effectively to meet the goals of the people we support and businesses in our community. Ministry funding and support is also evolving, hence our rebranding. And this includes moving to Xplore Employment, designing a new website, social media platforms, and making a video so that we can easily be accessible for employers who are looking to recruit and learn about our services. We also moved to a new location at 240 Rycroft Road in Oakville, where our Xplore Employment team offers a computer lab for job seekers and a training room to host pre-employment workshops and employer engagement opportunities. Unfortunately, of course, due to COVID, in-person offerings have not been possible at this time. However, we look forward to meeting you all in person at our new location very soon. With that being said, I would like to invite all of you to watch our new promotional video by Green, Pink, and Yellow Productions, showcasing our service offerings and our new location. So Hugo, if you don't mind playing the video.
Xplore Employment supports people to achieve their employment goals while working with employers to assist them in finding the right candidate for their business. Employment specialists offer job development support to connect the right person to the right job, as well as on-the-job coaching and ongoing support to the employee and employer to ensure success. Xplore Employment offers a pre-employment course, Jobsmart, for people new to the workforce or looking to build on their employable skills. Jobsmart focuses on a variety of topics. Jobsmart also offers people the opportunity to practice what they've learned in class on a job site. For more information, please check out our website at exploreemployment.com.
Okay, thank you so much, Hugo. I hope everyone enjoyed that video. And now I'd like to pass it over to Manager of Xplore Employment Services, Jenny Parisi.
Thanks, Alex. Xplore Employment works with businesses and offers access to a diverse talent pool while providing ongoing support to both the employer and employee. As you can all imagine, due to the pandemic this past year, finding and securing employment opportunities has been challenging. With the pandemic came new protocols, new sanitization procedures, and changes to business priorities. However, the Xplore Employment team persevered in their commitment to ensuring people met their employment goals and businesses found their ideal candidates. Our employment specialists worked with both new and current employers to evaluate their business needs and provide all ongoing support to all invested, and ensured all new protocols were practiced and health and safety guidelines were followed. Xplore Employment continues to build partnerships with new companies, and we are always willing to meet to discuss how businesses can diversify their hiring practices. If you or anyone you know is looking for more information on how to make your workplace more inclusive, please do not hesitate to contact myself or any of the Xplore Employment team members. At this time, I would like to express my sincere thanks to the Xplore Employment team for their resilience and dedication, especially during this past challenging year. I would also like to thank our supportive business partners who continue to promote a diverse and inclusive workforce. And I would like to thank everyone who is supported by Xplore Employment for their continued hard work and dedication. I will now pass it back to you, Pam.
Thank you so much. And the video was great. Well done, everybody. And I think it showed really well how supportive Xplore Employment is in with employers and employees. And I think people often think that they're on their own when they hire someone living with a disability, and you've shown that they're not. So we have an amazing business panel with us today, and I'd like to introduce them. We have representatives from Halton Healthcare, Oakville Trafalgar Memorial Hospital, Fortinos, and Lexus. If you have any questions, just a reminder to put them in the chat or use the raise hand function, and we will get to them at the end. So to begin, I want to introduce Linda Ivory. Linda is the Organizational Development Consultant, Diversity Inclusion at Halton Healthcare. Linda, over to you.
Thank you, Pam. And thank you, Jenny and the team, for inviting me, and congratulations on this very important launch. It's been a wonderful experience working with CLO, and the results we have obtained has and will continue to be life-changing for the people of our community. A little bit about our partnership. It started in 2018 with the program called Project Search, which a few people have alluded to. This program is offered to students in their final year of high school, students with disabilities, whereby during the school year, they actually go to employer site, which is us at the Oakville Hospital, to gain employable skills and through various internships throughout the hospital. And the goal, of course, is to obtain meaningful employment. Our partnership is actually twofold. First, we have the Project Search, but then we also have community living clients outside of that program who are also looking for meaningful employment. So around Project Search, CLO are members of our Project Search Steering Committee and work diligently year-round to fund 2 job skills trainers for the program. And that in itself is key to the success of this program. Without these great, dedicated, passionate skills trainers, we couldn't run the program. And we're so thankful for them. The skills trainers, along with the teacher from Halton District School Board, work with each individual intern in the classroom and on the internships. So they'll learn the different roles on every internship as well, along with the intern, so that the intern will be more comfortable doing that role. I am also the business liaison for the Project Search program, and I have developed many internships throughout the organization. And they run from internships in food services, our housekeeping department, human resources, dialysis, and there's many more. In these areas, the interns will learn aspects of different roles, and more importantly, they'll experience work life. I can't stress enough the communication that myself and my team have with community living is so important. It makes this program run seamlessly. We come up with creative ways to ensure that the intern is learning, that they're comfortable, they feel accepted, they feel included. Whether it's an individualized accommodation or even on our part, a lunch and learn to our own staff to learn about working with people with disabilities. We make it happen. This team is phenomenal with this partnership. At the end of the program, the intern will transition out of Project Search and into, right now, Xplore Employment, where they're assigned a job coach and assist with the gaining meaningful employment. So out of our 2019-2020 class, due to circumstances around COVID and everything, we were able to hire 6 of the 8 graduates. That's phenomenal. They were hired into temporary or permanent roles. They were working as helpers in food services, helpers in housekeeping. We had a new position, as Anaya alluded to, called the pandemic support role. We started a few there as well. I have actually some pictures I want to share of our graduates in their roles. Just give me 1 second. See if this will work. Can you see it?
No.
Maybe I
Not
can't.
yet.
I think I allowed it now, so you should be able to try it
Oh,
now.
okay. Let me see. No, it's not working. Okay. So it was a picture of various interns in their roles, from medical device reprocessing to cleaning in like the dialysis units, in our marketing department. So we're so proud of each and every one of those interns.
We saw it there.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, it popped up.
Oh, maybe I'm too too fast on that. Okay, so secondly, the second part of our partnership, as I said, was to work with CLO's clients who are not in Project Search, but also are seeking employment. Here, the process is CLO job coach will highlight a candidate to me. I will review their resume to ensure that they have the qualifications to meet the role that they're applying to. And then I will send out to the hiring manager or the HR advisor for that respective program. What I like about this partnership is that if a client is selected for an interview, the job coach will accompany them to the interview. If they're hired, they will actually sit or go with them to the orientation. So they also, like I said, for Project Search, they will also learn their role and stay with them until they're comfortable enough to be on their own. That service provides so much benefits to our clients, to their clients, and ensures a smooth transition to the role and to the workplace, which is valuable to any employer. We've hired 6 of clients with disabilities outside of Project Search into temporary and permanent roles as well. So they're again working as helpers in food services, in housekeeping, and in the pandemic role. This program is not only rewarding to the interns or those outside of the program, it's important to us as an organization as a whole. It has made such a positive impact on our workforce, our culture, and our performance as an organization. This year is an exciting time for us in respect to diversity, equity, and inclusion as we launch our DEI strategy. Our goal is to live our values, and that's to be compassionate, accountable, and respectful. We try to aspire to address the needs of our diverse workforce and raise awareness of the need for individuals to be treated fairly and equitably. This partnership is a perfect example of that. I've witnessed amazing transformations in our staff, from being hesitant and nervous to work with somebody with a disability to full out acceptance. Just the other day, I walked down to a staff room to hand one of the interns some papers I needed distributed. And he was sitting down with the team, having his lunch, big laughter coming from the room. It was amazing. And this person was so quiet at the beginning of an internship. To see that transformation is amazing. A diverse workforce is so important. Each employee brings a different set of perspectives and thoughts, beliefs and ideas, which helps us as an employer have different views on different challenges and opportunities that could come up. It makes our workforce feel respected and valued for who they are, and the more welcome they feel, the more committed they are to their role and less likely to leave. So it's a win-win. One of our managers here, who is over the top supportive of the program and our partnership, hired our first client from CLO. And she repeatedly states she wishes she had 100 more. And like Pam alluded to, they're totally committed to the role, never late, barely misses a day of work, sincere, they're polite, they're team players. And as an employer, we can't ask for more. As I stated at the beginning, the partnership is life-changing for members of our community. The individuals now have a purpose. I've heard from parents with tears of happiness on how appreciative they are. I've seen the interns start here nervous and unsure what to expect. They're in this big building and a hospital. It's scary because, I mean, with COVID and everything. And now they're walking around with confidence, and, you know, they're a member of our family. They're a part of this team, and they're becoming more and more independent. Last night, we had an open house for our project search for next class, and 2 parents spoke up about how their child is so different. They're transformed. One used to, you had to wake them up in the morning to get up to go to school, or to get up and get dressed or get their breakfast. And now that same person is saying, Mom, are you ready yet? I want to go. So, you know, as a parent, I can't even imagine. These employees now they have a job, they're excited to have a job, and they're getting paid, and they're receiving pension. Like, how much more can a parent ask for? The last thing I will say is what I've observed about this partnership is we have the same goal and passion. And because of this, we are determined to assist the members of our community. And that's why this partnership works. Thank you.
Linda, that was amazing. Thank you. And I think, you know, many of us forget that our first jobs were when we were 16, 17 at McDonald's, or that was where I worked at first when I was 16, or Tim Hortons. You learn skills in those jobs that you take with you when you enter the workforce when you're finished school. And so many people with with disabilities often get into their 20s, 30s, and even 40s before they're given the opportunity for that first job. So I think you know, Project Search is such an important component of giving these high school students those early skills that they wouldn't get otherwise. And I also know that one of your employees, it was his dream to work in a hospital setting, and working with his job coach and hiring him It's been incredible. But I also think you highlighted it's not just charity while you're doing it. It's also important for your own organization. So you've fulfilled somebody like Curtis's dreams by giving him the employment that he has, but you've also made your organization so much better because of the diversity that you brought into the workforce. So thank you for what you shared with us. That was amazing. Now we're going to have our second panelist, Nicole Cornfoot. Nicole is the assistant store manager at Fortino's on Nayagawa. Nicole, over to you. You're on mute, Nicole.
Sorry, guys, I'm not overly familiar with the whole Zoom thing. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can hear you, Nicole.
Okay, perfect. So as I'm not overly, because I'm usually in the store 8 to 10, 12 hours a day. So just in general with my experience, I've been working for Fortino's for 10 years now. And when I came to Fortino's, my first experience with, somebody employed with a disability was with Fortino's, truthfully. My previous employer was not on board with that. So that was my first experience, which obviously I was a little concerned, how am I going to deal with this? How am I going to handle it? It was a very smooth transition. I've been dealing with Community Living Oakville, obviously, for a very long time. And they were extremely supportive from the get-go, especially as a new manager, new to the role, new to the business. Just in how to handle and deal with some of the different situations. I worked at the Fortino's on Lakeshore initially, and I had a couple of employees there, one by the name of Joey, which some of you might know, and unbelievable experience. He would go above and beyond for any customer, though he wasn't able to perform the tasks at the level of some of the other employees. Listen, on our slower days and even on mid shifts with other employees to help support him is what we did. And just the amount of customer compliments and reviews that we got on him was unbelievable. Joey would shower you with hugs and well wishes every single day. I got cards on my birthday, which I didn't even know he knew my birthday. Cards at Christmas, cards for all different things. And he would get on a bus and bring the cards to the store. So such an amazing individual. That was my first experience. So I'm very appreciative for that because I did have a great experience. We also hired a few other employees through Community Living and their support. And again, I need to reiterate how fantastic it is that with certain individuals, they were able to, so their community living worker would come with them to support, but not necessarily always sit in on the interview, depending on the level of function. So they were able to actually sit in and do an independent sometimes. Sometimes the parents would want to come, but for the most part, we were able to sit down and do.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Okay. We were able to sit down and do full-on interviews, assess the level of functional abilities, and obviously within our stores, determine where best to place our employees. And since then, I've transitioned from the Lakeshore store to the brand new store on Nayagawa and Dundas. And I've been working diligently with Tracy and other members of the team. We've hired several individuals within our store and several individuals not with Community Living Oakville. For example, we have a lady working within our store who is completely deaf. She came to us of her own volition. She came to us via a job fair, and we determined that, you know what, she had the capabilities of doing certain jobs, and we found her a placement within the store, and she's been with us for 4.5 years, and she's absolutely phenomenal. It was a transition in the beginning for our customers, especially being a newer store. So in the first, 2 years of inception, it was a difficult transition. We had a lot of customers who, would give us comments and I questioned one of your employees in the aisles or in the bulk department, which is where she initially started, and she didn't respond. By educating a lot of our regular customers throughout the years, they've now come to learn and understand that we do have employees within the store that have disabilities. She carries a writing pad with her, so when a customer does, approach her, look at her face to face, she will show them her pad. She'll write it down. The customers realize we've had nothing but positive results since then. And again, it's really forced us as an employer to recognize the importance of teaching our staff members about inclusion and accessibility and disability. So we do a whole entire course once a year on accessibility, and that includes making sure that you're speaking to somebody face to face, because you don't necessarily know that they have a hearing impairment or maybe a speech impediment or a visual impairment. So by speaking to them face to face, you're encouraging dialogue, and that person can communicate with you. So for example, in this particular employee's case, if you're speaking to her face to face, she can communicate to you that she does have an impairment, but she's willing to help you. So it's really forced us as an employer to really take note and make sure that all of our staff is fully trained. It's put a real focus on accessibility and making sure that our employees are aware. And I kid you not, any of the employees that we've hired have streamlined into perfect employees with all the rest of our employees. Very often, I've called Tracy on a couple of occasions saying, you know what, this employee, he's a little bit too social. Whereas when he came into it, when he first started, he was very antisocial. Now I can't get him to stop talking and do his work. So it's a balance, but it's definitely reassuring to see, and especially when you hear from the parents. So another particular individual that we hired, his mom came forward and said she couldn't believe the change she saw. He was very introverted when he came to us, didn't have a lot of friends. Now, this is the one particular employee I speak of that doesn't stop talking, and we have to say, hey, come on, let's go, get back to work. He's made friends with everybody in the store, and his personality has completely changed. His schoolwork has changed, his grades have improved, just his social skills in general have improved. And it's also helped some of our other employees realize that, you know what, even a person with disability can be one of your best friends or your best advocates. So we are a huge supporter of this. And like I said, I've been hiring for the past 10 years with Community Living Oakville, and will continue. And currently, I think we have about 4 or 5 employees with Community Living, as well as a couple of others that have disabilities that are not within Community Living, that are just independent. So good job, guys. And I would honestly encourage any other employer to do the same as the rest of us, because there is so much value, and they have so much to offer and so much to give.
Thank you so much, Nicole. And I'll just take the opportunity to remind everybody who's not speaking to mute themselves. I know that threw you off a little bit when you got a hello in there.
What's going on?
Yeah. You've shown how it's become part of the culture at Fortino's. And when you moved from Lakeshore up to Nayagawa, you brought that culture with you.
Yes.
And incorporated it into everything you do there.
Yes.
And I think, you're not only opening the eyes of your other employees, but also your customers. And I think your story about the employee who is deaf is a great example, because I was thinking as you were talking, encouraging all of your employees to speak directly to a customer is not only good for the employee who's deaf, but it's also better customer service for all of your employees, right? Where the customer is being spoken to directly. So I think I just want to applaud everything you've done, Nicole. That's amazing. And thank you for sharing the experience. That's the Fortino's closest to me that I shop at. So I know some of the employees that you're talking about, and at Lakeshore actually. So thank you for all you're doing. And the last panelist that we're going to have speak is Stephanie Christophos, and she's the Human Resources and Executive Assistant at Lexus of Oakville. So Stephanie, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you, Pam. First and foremost, I just want to thank Community Living Oakville for asking me to be a part of this. When Tracy Morrow approached me, I was super excited to speak on behalf of Lexus of Oakville. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit of our partnership. Lexus of Oakville started our journey with Community Living Oakville in September 2018. The president of Lexus of Oakville, Frank Appa, knows Andre Dury, and Andre Dury reached out and we had a meeting, we scheduled a meeting, and he explained what CLO does and how we can work together. After our meeting, we were immediately interested, and being a car dealership, we had certain criteria for hiring people, such as they had to have a valid driver's license and a clean driving record. So we weren't sure how well this was going to work, but we actually were introduced to Anthony at that point, and Tracy Morrow, which was the job placement coordinator. And Anthony came in, had a regular interview with our service manager, who really took a liking to Anthony. At that point, we had a job sample where Tracy joined Anthony and shadowed our staff members to see if what he was doing was a fit for him and a fit for us. It worked out really well. Anthony loves being outdoors, so he works seasonally for us. So in the golf season, he works at a golf course. He loves to be outside. And then in the off season, he works at Lexus of Oakville. He's one of our valets, which includes, washing the cars, vacuuming, maybe shuttling our guests, sometimes where they need to go. I have to say, Anthony, his work ethic is incredible. He's extremely diligent and very regimented. We can't get our regular staff members to punch in and out for lunch properly, but Anthony's is like bang on, 4 punches a day, no problems. And everyone else here, we have to constantly badger them, guys, you didn't punch out for lunch, or you didn't punch back in from lunch, right? So he has been honestly a model employee for Lexus of Oakville. Like I said, we're going on 2 years now, and when the golf season's ending, the staff is asking, okay, when's Anthony's coming back? Like, we can't wait for Anthony to come, because he brings such a different atmosphere to the team. And when we have new employees, we explain to them, what Anthony's disability is. You have to be a little bit more literal with Anthony than you would anyone else. And everyone's just been so great, and it makes me very emotional to see how inclusive our staff have been with Anthony. I'm gonna also mention, we also had Kevin come work for us as well. Our experience with Kevin was a little bit more challenging, and I think it's important to talk about that. Not everyone you're gonna get is going to be the same. Kevin was, we had a few challenging with his punctuality. Now, when you have someone start at a certain time, our team depends on that person to be on time. So when Kevin was constantly being late, we said, you know what, maybe 8 o'clock's a little bit too early for him. Let's switch his start time. So we switched it to 8:30. And then we noticed Kevin was coming in at 9. So we said, okay, maybe 8:30 is a little bit too early. Let's try 9 o'clock. So we redid the schedule for 9 o'clock. Then Kevin was coming in at 9:30. So we realized, okay, it's not the time. It's just, we just have to be a little bit more forgiving with that. He had a few coping issues, dealing with some staff. But the one thing that I have to say about Community Living Oakville, Tracy Morrow, I would just pick up the phone, give her a call, explain to her the challenges we were having, and right away she was there, and she was so supportive throughout this whole process. She has been incredible. She's actually been my rock. If we ever had anything happen, she's just been awesome. So thank you, Tracy. You rock. You're the best. And this experience for us, I mean, I think not only has it been good for us because we've had to learn how to deal with someone with a disability where we never had to do that before. It wasn't in our everyday life. Yes, we have guests with disability and we know how to deal with them because of the training, but that's limited. When working with someone day to day, all day, you have to know a little bit more than seeing them in little tidbits. So, we've learned to be more patient. We've learned how to identify when something is wrong. Like, okay, there might be a little bit of an issue there. So how do we deal with that? And again, having the support of Community Living Oakville has been absolutely phenomenal. But I also believe it's been great for the people that we've brought on board. We are extremely regimented and process-driven dealership. And it has forced everyone to be more process driven. So I think, even though where Anthony was able to pick things up right away, it took Kevin a little bit longer, but again, we are extremely proud that they were able to pick that up. And, we assisted them in their journey with us along the way. With Lexus of Oakville, our culture from day one, from the top to the bottom, has always been to have a diverse workforce. We strongly believe that any individual should be afforded an equal opportunity to work. And this goes regardless of gender or age or nationality or disability. It's just been our culture from day one. So to have this partnership with Community Living Oakville for us has been really important. It's actually even created a better culture with our own team and having, everyone recognize what's happening around us. So, at Lexus of Oakville, we don't call our customers, we call them guests. And our philosophy is we treat everyone as we would guests in our own home. The same goes for our staff. They're not just our team. We constantly call them our team, but they're also our family. And it's great to have that sort of culture in a workplace. So that's our experience. And again, thank you very much for asking me to be a part of this.
Thanks so much, Stephanie. It's funny because there's often a perception that of the skills that someone living with a disability can bring to a job. And I know when I had a coffee with Frank that time, and we were talking about it, and I suggested someone living with a disability, his first thought was, well, but I need someone with a driver's license. And I said, well, yeah, but you don't know unless you ask, Frank. So follow up. And I know he reached out to you right away before we'd even left the restaurant, and he'd been in touch with Andre. But it shows sometimes people have a perception about people's abilities that's just wrong. And we need to open their employers' eyes that, just be really clear in what your needs are. And Community Living and now Xplore Employment can work with you to fill those needs. And if they can't, they're not going to send you someone doesn't have the qualifications. I think, Stephanie, you're showing that not everything's perfect is really important. That's the same with all employees, right? Whether they have a disability or not. Not every employee is perfect, but the fact you were able to work with Kevin and find a strategy that worked is really, really important as well. So thank you for what you've done and sharing the story. And I'm just wondering if anyone here has any questions for the panelists. I don't think we have anything in the chat. How are we doing this? I can't see if people raise their hands. Oh, maybe I can. And I don't see any raised.
Doesn't look like there's any questions so far, Pam.
Well, I have one maybe to kick things off while people think about their question. How much, so often employers think it's too expensive for accommodations. So I can't hire someone with a disability because it's going to cost me too much money. And I know that surveys have been done, and I think the average cost is $500. So there's a perception out there that it's going to cost me way too much money to hire someone with a disability. The reality isn't the same. And I'm wondering maybe if our panelists could just talk about, what that has been like in terms of accommodations, and has it cost your organization a lot of money to be able to provide accommodations? And any of you could start. Nicole, did you want to go?
Sure, yeah. So, you know what, it hasn't really cost us a nominal amount of money. Does it require some creative scheduling? Does it require some overlap in different areas and whatnot? Yes, it does. But you know what, as long as you sit down and you assess what the needs are, what your expectations are, and you really try and very carefully match them up, and you work closely again with Tracy or any of the other workers. No, I don't feel that we've found it to be any kind of extraordinary expense at all. And in most cases, it's been a benefit. Like I said, rarely do I ever have any of these employees calling in sick. Rarely do I ever have them showing up late. Rarely, do I have to discipline them for not doing their duties? Do you have to stay on top of them? Yeah, absolutely. I've got a couple of boys I got to stay on top of, but I got boys at home too. So it's no different. I just feel like a mom of 300 instead of 3, right? But no, it really hasn't. As long as you do the work and you're committed to it, and you work with the community living worker, I don't feel that it costs corporations a lot of money. And you know what, again, when there is an issue, as long as you're communicating that with the worker and sitting down to try and come up with a game plan, at the end of the day, 9 times out of 10, I've found it's worked. I think I've only had one situation where it just wasn't working out for us.
And also,
that's my perspective.
I know, Nicole, in your business, retention is always an issue, right? Because you tend to be hiring high school students and they stay for a few months. So there's costs associated with retraining employees. So when you have employees that are staying in the organization, that's actually important, because you don't have those additional costs associated with it as well, right?
Absolutely. And you know what, in most cases, any of the employees that we have hired with community living have been long-term employees. And the only reason for leaving, it was funny, I was having a conversation with Tracy the other day. One of our employees, he was moving up to the Waterdown Ancaster area. He was such a phenomenal employee. I knew the assistant store manager at that store, and I said, you know what, absolutely 100%. Let's get you, let's transition you. So because we're franchise stores, we can't do a transfer. So we had to terminate, but they rehired him immediately because the assistant store manager had worked with him at our store and said, he's bar none, one of the best. Absolutely, I'll take him on. So we were able to transition him based on his life need, his regular, he moved. So a change in circumstance, and we were able to help accommodate him. And when it comes to really great employees like that, especially long-term employees who are reliable and valuable, we do everything we can to help them out.
Did either Linda or Stephanie want to pipe in on that?
Yeah, I agree with Nicole. I don't agree that there would be a huge expense. We've made slight accommodations for a couple of our hires, and they're simple. It could have been just a piece of tape on the floor so the person will know where the cart is. Or if they weren't comfortable in an area, then I'd make up a totally different internship so they were comfortable. Yeah, I totally agree with what Nicole said. It could be minor. We haven't experienced anything drastic to date that it would deter us. And if there was, we'd work around it.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I would have to agree with the ladies as well. The cost to us has really, it's been minimal. I mean, the positions that we fill typically are for the valet. And as you mentioned, there are, entry-level positions, sometimes high school students, college people getting into the workforce. And, the people that we've hired from Community Living Oakville are there longer than these students have. So, we've had to train them once, where these students, or the constant, the turnover because they get a better opportunity or wasn't a fit for them. So really the cost has been minimal. And like the ladies mentioned, a slight adjustment in schedule doesn't really cost us anything for that. A slight adjustment on maybe where to post the policies and procedures. So they're listed out there. But again, that there's no cost. That's all, it's just what we do, and we would do that for anybody.
And I suspect your guests quite enjoy having the same person when they come in, rather than a turnover in that position, right? That your guests come in and are quite happy to say, hey, Anthony, good to see you again. And I have got a question here about health and safety and WSIB. What has been your experience in terms of health and safety and WSIB? Is that a concern for any of you? I'm seeing shaking heads no.
No, hasn't been a concern. We offer training here at the hospital. They do e-learning, whether they're hired as an employee or as an intern. They all go through all the protocols. Everybody is covered, whether like if they're in project search, they're covered through HDSB, and if they're an employee, they're covered under us for WSIB as well. So we provide a little bit extra training nowadays because of COVID and putting on the protective equipment. But no, we have no concerns there as well.
I know I often hear from employers, well, I don't know what to do if I hire somebody with a disability. They feel like they're going to be on their own. And so that fear prevents them from actually even exploring the possibility. And all of you have talked about job coaches. Maybe you could, how important was that, knowing that job coach was there to your experience hiring someone? Because it can be intimidating if you don't know about Xplore Employment, you don't know about Community Living Oakville, and someone just said, you should hire somebody with a disability. And then the employer goes, but I don't know where to start. So how important is that job coach leading you through that process?
So I can start with that. Like, it was intimidating for me personally. And when I sat down with my service manager and I explained we're going to partner up with Community Living Oakville and this is what we're going to do. And he said, but I have no experience of dealing with anyone with a disability. I don't even know where to start. How do I speak to them? Can I speak to them normally? Do we discipline the same way? I don't know where to start. And that's where Tracy came in. And he had all of his questions, and we sat down and Tracy explained, and I think it's important to know the disability that the person has that you are bringing in to the job. What sort of disability is it? Is it hearing? Is it learning? Is it a certain Asperger's or some sort of a form of autism? Where are they on the spectrum? And how to deal with that. And again, Tracy was awesome. She explained with Anthony. Anthony's very literal, and your staff needs to understand that he is very literal. So, at the beginning, he might not fully understand the joke, and he might look at everyone a little bit perplexed. But the funny part is now with Anthony's the one that's, laughing at the joke and, getting involved and, which is amazing to see. But having that support and knowing you have that support when you have a question is key to this whole experience.
Thanks, Stephanie. There's another question, and it came from Stephanie, so I'm not sure if that was from you.
No.
Okay. How did the employer get on board, and what made you decide to hire adults with disabilities? Linda, do you want to? Oh, who's?
Sorry, I can say for me, like I said, when I came on board with Fortino's, that was already the culture. That was a culture that they had fostered for a very long time. But honestly, it's something it's a culture that's been fostered within the company from head office down. It's been for a very long time. And I guess for us, it's just been a proven factor. Adults with disabilities, especially adults, and in our industry, let's be honest, how many adults want to push buggies? How many adults want to push carts? It's something that's looked down upon, even though it's an absolutely essential part of our business and a very important role. And it's a dangerous role as well. So yes, in terms of, health and safety, we train them with e-learning and a little bit more specific training. We usually have their workers come in and do their training upon hiring them. But yeah, it's very important just to make sure that your employees are trained properly. And like I said, this is an essential part of our business. So yeah, Do I have somebody that helps us push buggies Monday to Friday during the daytime where somebody else doesn't necessarily want that job, but it's a very important and vital role to our business, and it's meaningful to somebody who needs that employment? Absolutely.
Well, that's amazing. Something else I think people also, and then we're going to get to our keynote speaker, but I think people also think that the regular labor laws don't apply if you hire someone with a disability. And I know a question I'm always asked is, but what if they don't work out? What do I do? Do I have to keep them on? And the answer is no, you don't. If someone doesn't work out, then absolutely you're not required to keep that person in your employ. It's no different than any other employee. So it's really important for employers. There's a lot of myths out there, and I thank the three of you for shattering those myths and really shining a light on how important it can be to your organizations and the difference it's made to your organizations by being so proactive. Now, I'm not sure, Alexandra or Hugo, what time, I've got one more question that just came in. Do we have time for that or not?
Yeah, we're good for time.
Okay, so the question is, what type of positions are candidates looking for? And is it more hands-on, or are there technical roles? It would be great to know so that we see what opportunities we can make at our companies. I'm actually going to say, talk to Xplore Employment, tell them what you want, and they'll find a candidate for you. But you know, I think that's one of the things, is that people think there's only certain types of positions. And Lexus, I think you're a good example, Stephanie, of where you wouldn't have normally thought of hiring someone who has a driver's license and also has a disability. And yet, if you describe the position, Xplore Employment can say, yes, we can help you, or they'll be quite open and saying, no, we can't. Stephanie, maybe you could speak to that one.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Again, when we did have our meeting with Andre Jury, and we weren't sure, we said, well, where can we don't really have greeters here. We don't really have, back then our mindset was this small. We've just learned so much with doing being a part of this program, and we explained, this is what we need. We have to have someone with a valid driver's license, but it doesn't only have to be valid. They have to have a clean driver's abstract. That's important. We can't have someone racing up and down or driving a guest in the vehicle, and they think they're a race car driver. We need to make sure that we're
crashing their vehicle.
Absolutely, right? So we need to make sure everyone's safe and safe for them and as well as everyone else. So we said what our criteria was, and they sent us candidates and there were quite a few that were, that fell into there. And the one thing that I want to also mention is, we felt at no point in time pressure to hire every single person that came across our desk. There was no pressure. It was, you interviewed them. You know what, this person doesn't really feel like they're going to be a fit with our team, so we're going to pass. Let's move on to the next, right? And that was awesome to have. But no, we had, there was quite a few candidates that came across our desk, and with the criteria that we did need to fill our positions.
That's awesome. And we got one other question. Linda, maybe I'll get you to answer this one. Do you have any advice for other employers that might be considering hiring individuals with disabilities, but don't feel confident enough to do it?
For us, I guess it brings me back to when we had Curtis. I remember him coming in specifically with Andre. He had an interview. It didn't go as well as expected. And after talking with Andre, afterwards, I just made a few calls. And what I was looking for, I talked to the specific manager and I said, can we do just me and her do the interview? Instead of it goes, because the interviews can be sometimes going to the supervisors, and just make them feel a little bit more comfortable. Let's change up the questions a bit, not being so, typical, and from there, she just said yes. Right. So I guess my point is do the research, talk to Xplore Employment, and there's nothing. We offered our staff learning sessions on how to work with somebody with disability, not to be apprehensive, or they're just like anybody else. They can do so much, and there's nothing to be, they shouldn't be pushing back. There's nothing out there to be pushed back about. I mean, I grew up with my best friend being hearing impaired. You know, she had a lot of struggles. I worked with her during night shifts at Shoppers Drug Mart just to get her some experience, that type of thing. But as an employer, I think it's very important to be open and listen. You can't, it's a win-win. Like you said, all the, you know, the benefits outweigh the negatives by far.
That's great. I have to give a shout out to Her Studios. I got a compliment on my hair. That's where I get it cut. And they also are an inclusive employer. And the young woman who was working in their studio, unfortunately due to COVID and health concerns, hasn't been able to be in there for a while, but shout out to Her Studios. Carolyn, did you want to speak to a little bit to the jobs that you can support through XploreNet?
Yes.
XploreNet, Xplore Employment.
Okay. I just wanted to tell you a little story about a gentleman that was a dishwasher for about 7 years, and that was his survival job. He came to us about over a year ago, and he has software programming skills. But because he'd been in the dishwashing area restaurant, he was not, no certifications, his software was programming skills was out of date. And we were able to link up with Ready, Willing, and Able and EY, which is Ernst & Young, and he is part of their neurodiverse program and went through a grueling week of five days of 6 hours of programming on Zoom and working and seeing what kind of team member you would be. Anyways, he went from making $16 an hour to over $32 an hour in 1 week. He's working out of his house. He just passed his automation engineer certification. So EY saw his abilities, saw that he's great learning, but doesn't have the certifications. And now they're working with him to get him certified. And he's on a special project now that he's doing that he can't tell me about. But those are the sorts of jobs that we can find too. It's not just the physical hands-on job or entry-level jobs.
Yeah, and that's really important. And so often people just have this very narrow view of what types of jobs, and you know, kudos to Fortinos and everything you're doing, but not all jobs are necessarily like that. And even as Stephanie was saying, we didn't really need a greeter. You've got this preconceived notion of what types of jobs are available. And I think, Carolyn, that's really, really important. I think the most important thing employers can do is reach out to Xplore Employment and say, this is what we're looking for. I hear from employers all the time, we can't find employees. We can't find people to work in our organization. And I'll always say, have you ever considered people living with disabilities? And they haven't. It's not that they don't want to hire, it's just that they haven't thought of it. So I think this is probably a good segue into our keynote speaker. Sean Callaghan is the retired area general manager of Sodexo Canada. I'm really fortunate to have Sodexo in my riding of Oakville, North Burlington, and had a visit there to talk about all the amazing work that you've done hiring people living with disabilities. Sean, you've been a leader in promoting the benefits of hiring individuals with disability. You're directly responsible for you were directly responsible for the hiring and onboarding of approximately 20 additional employees to work within various Sodexo locations across the GTA. I know you've got you've done such groundbreaking, tremendous work on this issue. So Sean, thank you for joining us this morning. And I know we're all looking forward to hearing from you.
Hey, thank you, Pam. It's great to be here, and I'm very flattered to have been invited. So a lot of what I'm going to share really mirrors Linda, Stephanie, and Nicole. I think we've all drank the Kool-Aid and we fully get the value, as I'm sure many people on the call as well have the proverbial drank the Kool-Aid. So a little bit about myself. So yes, I'm retired now, but I spent over 40 years in the hospitality field. Started out at Wendy's, not McDonald's. And when I was about 14, And then I was working as a cook. I went to culinary school. I worked as a cook in England. I became a chef, eventually an executive chef, and then went on working management with Sodexo, which is a global company. The last 15 years of my career, I was managing food service operations for corporate offices in their buildings. And it's funny, Fortino's has been discussed today. And one of the places, the key place that I managed was the Loblaw head office. And Fortino's is one of their most important banners. So they are a great company to work with. I retired 1 week before COVID, so it's been a very interesting year. And now I'm a part-time woodworker. I volunteer, and including working with the school board with Project Search. And I'm a full-time husband and now grandfather. So it's been a good year in that sense. So my first exposure to people with disabilities in the workplace occurred when I was a sous chef at McMaster University in Hamilton, and we had placement students come and learn to learn basic kitchen skills. And I was the lead contact, and I found it very rewarding. And I didn't realize that at the time it was going to become one of my passions. So if you fast forward 15 years or so, I decided, and this was mentioned already, that it's, you want to do the right thing. It's charity, want to give back to the community. However, after hiring persons with disabilities, I realized it was more than that, and it brought tremendous benefits to the operation. So at the time of I retired and over many of the final years that I was working, we usually had at least 20% of our team consisted of persons with a disability. That ranged from people that were deaf, spectrum disorders such as autism, Asperger's, mental health issues such as schizophrenia, even a young man who was blind. And people with disabilities, they were among our top performers. They were just awesome. Okay, so I want to share my experience. That's why I was invited today, to share my experiences on hiring people with disabilities. And I broken this up into 4 sections. The first is going to be the disability employment pool, the myths and the key benefits, and what I've learned. So, when I say start off with the employment pool, obviously the landscape has been changed by COVID. So if we could just pretend this is 2020 February and not 2021. So about 22% of Canadians have a disclosed disability that are over 15, which makes it our Canada's largest minority group. About half of those are unemployed, and of that 800,000 disabled Canadians are looking for work, and I'm sure many of you know exactly what all about that. This is a tremendous pool of untapped talent. And aside from that, the pool of talent, there's also a tremendous amount of potential income, because the spending power of disabled Canadians, their families and friends, is estimated to be over $40 billion. So that's some huge amount. All right, so let's talk about some of the myths. So myth number 1, persons with disabilities lack employable skills. This is false. Because of their disability, they develop other skills, and such as perseverance and problem solving. They are extremely determined, and they do not give up easily. This was also discussed. Accommodations in the workplace are too expensive. They say in about 85% of the cases, there's no accommodations required. And when it is very minimal. And sometimes, in most cases, such as mine and others, it is the same as just altering the job schedule, some tasks, maybe some hours. And if you think about it, we really make accommodations or adjustments to our workplace all the time. And the one, I don't really recall having to spend any money over the years on accommodation, except the only time I was ever really asked to make an accommodation was for the young man who was blind. He couldn't really find his locker. He had a bit of sight, but he couldn't find in the big sea of lockers for all the staff. He had trouble finding his. So if he could put a red sticker on his locker door, and that was really the only accommodation I ever remember getting. So that was a good story to share. Will they make their coworkers uncomfortable? No, they will not. They will actually have the opposite effect, and coworkers can become very fond of their disabled colleagues, and they miss them quite a bit when they're on vacation. People with disabilities are less educated. This is also false. Studies show that persons with disabilities are 66% more likely to have a post-secondary education compared to other adults. Persons with disabilities can't be fired. I know, Pam, you brought this up as well. You're correct, this is false. There are laws in place to protect all workers equally, and there aren't any specific laws for persons with disabilities. Yes, in some rare occasions, I have had to terminate employees who were disabled, which was unfortunate, but it's part of the business and it's part of reality. So I learned that regardless of ability or disability, sometimes it just isn't the right fit. And of course, contacting a service provider and using a service provider will help you find the right fit for your business. Persons with disability need more supervision. This is false. In my experience, and studies have also shown that persons with disabilities require the same level or less of supervision as employees without a disability. Most persons with a disability are in a wheelchair. Of course, that's false. Only about 6% of disabled people use a wheelchair, and this misconception is mainly due to the wheelchair icon we see very often. So let's get into some of the benefits. So in my experience, and this is also supported by many studies, I'm going to share some of the benefits, and I've put them into 4 categories. So the first benefit, which is the kind of like the feel-good category, is the benefit that it brings the employee themselves. So it improves their quality of life, and we've heard some of that already. These are great stories. So starting, their mental health improves, their self-worth, their self-confidence. It provides them with a social network. It provides them with feelings of inclusion. And of course, one of the main things for them is gives them some financial independence. So these are great things, and to see that impact on them in the workplace is very rewarding. The second one is benefits to their colleagues, so their coworkers. It improves the overall workplace. It reduces stress, it makes the atmosphere better, so it provides a better mental health and better physical health for their colleagues. It improves the morale, and it creates a safer workplace for everyone, because in my experience, and studies have shown, they adhere to rules. And I think it was Stephanie who talked about them clocking in and things like that. So yeah, when you teach them, this is how you wear a cut glove, this is how you wear your gloves and oven mitts and things like that. They follow the rules and they don't have to be chased down for those things. They also have a positive impact on the profitability of the company, resulting in a more stable workplace for everyone. And I'll talk about this more in a bit. So next there's benefits to the customer. So the customers get a more reliable and consistent service. So I'll use the example of Subway. You go into Subway and you order something with mustard, and you get tons and tons of mustard. And then you go in the next time and they don't put much mustard on at all. So, but again, going back to what I was saying about how they follow the rules, persons with disabilities are more likely to be like the structure. And when they're trained properly and shown this is the proper portion of mustard, they're more likely to do it right and consistently every time. And the other benefit to customers is they also provide a very positive experience. The other part of this, which is kind of maybe a little bit towards the community, it creates awareness and helps reduce stereotypes and help moves that needle of acceptance in our communities, which is great. So the fourth one is benefits to the company. So hopefully there's someone on the call that's debating, should I hire someone with a disability or should I not? So this is where the rubber hits the road for the business owners. And of course, it's about profitability. So everything that I list has a dollar amount tied to it, has a value to your bottom line. So the first is it improves employee engagement. It reduces your turnover, and studies have shown it costs on average about $4,000 every time you have to replace an employee with your ad, the time, the training, etc. So those time-consuming, frustrating, and expensive. It reduces your training costs. And I mentioned before, they're more likely to adhere to company standards and protocols. So in the culinary field, if you show them this is a portion, 112 grams of meat to go on a sandwich, they're going to most likely put 112 grams, sometimes exactly, on the sandwich. So that saves in your food costs. Improved attendance, punctuality, loyalty, reliability. So I think it was Stephanie who, it may have been their first hire, was Anthony. Anthony was also my first hire, and it's been a tremendous experience. So I hired Anthony well over 10 years ago. Anthony is autistic, and he came, when it comes to being reliable and loyal, he came to work every day, regardless of the weather, regardless of anything else. And he never called in sick. And if he was late, it was usually because there was a breakdown on the road and the bus, something to do with the bus route. And he hated taking vacations. So tremendously reliable and loyal. Improved health and safety, reducing insurance premiums. So Pam, you had mentioned that as well about cost around health and safety. So again, not to beat a dead horse, but when you train them, the safety training, they are much more likely to follow it to the letter. Productive rates. So the studies have shown they actually drive and push the work ethic in the workplace, making your overall workplace more productive. They improve your company image and push your brand loyalty, resulting in a more loyal customer base. And including persons with disabilities, don't forget, if they know that the Fortinos on Nayagawa or whatever road, hires people with disabilities, they're more likely to shop there and support that company. Potential new sales. This is another aspect that can really benefit a company and have huge impact to your bottom line. So when companies bid on business, much like my company Sodexo would, we had to show our diversity inclusion business part of our business as the presentation, and there were many times that our diversity inclusion practices and reputation really helped us in the bid, and I believe sometimes it tipped the scale in our favor. Persons with disability are very innovative and creative and increase production levels and reduce costs. And I'll tell you a story about an employee named Michael. Michael worked in the dish room. Michael came to me one day, and he wanted to put a bin, a bus pan, next to the belt that collected all the dirty dishes. And if you can imagine at this account with close to 4,000 people putting their dishes and cutlery on this conveyor belt, sometimes the cutlery would fall down under the belt, damaging the belt, jamming the belt, and causing all kinds of problems and expenses. So Michael came up with this idea that if he put a bin there to collect, people could put their cutlery right in the bin and prevent it from going in the thing on the belt, which was great, and it worked fine. Then Michael came to me and he showed me his gloves, and he shows me how he gets holes in his gloves lifting the cutlery out of the bin that had soapy water in it. So he asked if he could take a bin home. The next day he brought in this bin, and he had drilled holes in the bottom. So now what we had was the ability to lift the bin out. The water would drain out, leaving all the cutlery that's been soaking. And now they're able to sort it properly without puncturing their gloves with forks, saving on cost. Those rubber gloves, they're like $9 a pair. These things add up, and I think it shows great initiative and creativity by Michael. So the final part is what I want to share is what I've learned from hiring persons with disabilities. So I have learned a few things over the years. Some lessons have been good, and some lessons have been hard to learn. But there are two words that I really wanted to share that have really helped me as a manager, and those words are respect and attitude. So let's start with my most favorite word, respect, and I'll show you how it ties in with persons with disabilities. So this is a big word, and it can mean many things, and it's my guide, almost like a compass, that has helped me navigate a variety of situations in my career, especially in the beginning when I initially started hiring persons with disability. And I'll give you an example. The first time I interviewed someone who had a disability that was deaf, I'm like, how do I interview someone who is deaf? And I didn't have the luxury of a service provider at that time. So I asked myself, how do I do this? And I decided, you know what, I just need to be honest and straight with them and show them some respect. So what I did was, after meeting them and, a nice firm handshake and a nice smile, I sat with them and I gave them a piece of paper, and on the paper I asked them, how do we do this interview if you can't hear me, and how do we communicate? And he smiled and he told me that he can read lips, but I had to speak clearly and with short sentences, and there would be no issue. And he was right. It worked out great, and I hired him. And that's Michael, the one with the bus bins and the cutlery. Another example is our weekly safety talks. So even though I had learned some basic sign language, we always ensured we had printed handouts for our deaf employees. This showed we respected them, and they were important parts of our team, just like everybody else. They weren't forgotten, have them sit at the back and exclude them. They were just as important as everyone else, and we showed them that respect. And our other employees would see us showing that same respect, and had a positive impact on them too. You'd be amazed at how much you can communicate with someone who's deaf without sign language. Body language and gestures can go a long way. My next favorite word to share is attitude. Whoever said attitude is everything really knew what they were talking about. For most hiring managers, including when I was hiring people as well, the key target was always their qualifications, their accomplishments, and their skills. Although these are very important, my experiences with hiring people with disabilities, I've learned there's one key quality that has to be present, and that's a good attitude. So over the years, I've worked with many people in kitchens around the GTA in Europe, and everyone from dishwashers to cooks to chefs and managers. And in some cases, these people had a negative or disruptive influence on the atmosphere of the workplace. And when I was a manager of people that had these disruptive influences, I tried to coach them and guide them to correct these behaviors. But in the most part, I have to admit, and I'm sure other managers would admit this too, that sometimes we accept these shortcomings because they perform their job so well in other areas. The final product was awesome, but behind the scenes there were issues. But after hiring persons with disabilities, I learned the true value of a positive attitude. From then on, I would not accept these disruptive shortcomings. Persons with disabilities consistently deliver a positive attitude, and I think it's their greatest attribute. So what does a positive attitude look like to me? So I've always found that persons with disabilities are so glad to be employed. They are so glad to be part of the team. They are eager to come to work every day. And I'll give you a story about Kwame. So Kwame was a kitchen porter, and he would come to work 3 hours before the start of his shift. And I tried to tell Kwame, you don't need to be here this early. And after constant badgering, I got him down to 2 hours. And I said to him, why? Like, you don't need to be here this early. And he just said, I just don't want to be late. And so I ended up calling his dad, because he would just sit, and honestly, he would wait for 2 hours quietly until it was time to start. He would clock in and start work. And so we got him down to an hour. So that was kind of our acceptable threshold, that Kwame would show up an hour every day before his shift. Okay, back to attitude. So people with disabilities really want to follow the rules. I've touched on this. The uniforms, break times, start times, clocking in and out, the wearing of PPE, portion control, etc. They want to succeed. They are open-minded. They are very eager to learn, They are eager to get along, and in most cases, they are very non-confrontational. They aren't hung up on job titles and status, and it's not just a job to them, it is so much more. So lastly, we've heard that there's a huge talent pool to draw from. We've covered myths, and they're nothing more than that. They're just myths. I've talked about the benefits of hiring persons with disability, how it impacts the employee, the company, the coworkers, and the customers. So you could say it's almost like a win-win, win-win. And the tremendous importance of using respect as your guide and the value of a positive attitude. I hope you found my experiences interesting and will inspire business owners to make that good business decision and hire someone with a disability. Thank you.
Sean, that was terrific. My goodness gracious. And I'm so happy you talked about the economic impact of hiring people living with disabilities, because that often gets overlooked. And I think Canadians in general don't realize, our former Lieutenant Governor in Ontario, David Onley, did a lot of work on this. And as you probably know, and he always talks about the, you mentioned 40 billion, that's with a B, the economic impact on Canada if we were to, if people living with disabilities were all able to be gainfully employed. So that was amazing. I remember a woman from community living that I met that got her first job in her 40s, working in a restaurant. She was, when the glasses came out from the dishwasher, you had to make sure there were no spots on them. She was so thrilled when she told me that she had her first job. Imagine being in your 40s and finally being able to find employment and have, and it was a benefit for her employer and for her. So that was amazing. We have one question in here, but it's not really for you, but I have one for you. What do you think the biggest barrier is for employers? Why Community Living, Xplore Employment is doing such great work. There's other organizations across the country doing great work. What do you think the biggest barrier is for employers not taking that leap or not thinking about hiring those with disabilities?
I think they buy into too many of the myths that it'll maybe cost them money. It takes up more of their time. They're too busy. I think they're very narrow-minded. The stats show that it's a great business decision and it has multiple positive impacts on your entire business.
The question, and I think this probably is going to go to Xplore Employment, but are there opportunities to hire for companies that are outside of Oakville, or are the majority of applicants living in Oakville? And then if not, do you partner with any other agencies in different regions? So is there somebody that could maybe answer that question? Jenny, are you going to take that?
Sure, I'll take that. So Xplore Employment supports anyone within the Halton region. They don't need to live within Oakville, and we partner with businesses across Halton region as well. So we do partner with businesses in Milton. We had a recent partnership with someone in Georgetown. We are very fortunate. We have good partnerships with other agencies, Community Living Burlington, Community Living North Halton, Ready, Willing, and Able. So that helps us. I mean, all us agencies have the same goal. We all want to support people to find to meet their employment goals and support businesses to ensure that they find the ideal candidate. So we work closely together. If a candidate comes to us and we're not sure where to place them and we don't have a partnership in that area, we'll connect with Community Living Burlington, and we share resources. So yeah.
That's great. So if there was a company that maybe had we're working out of Oakville and Mississauga, you would be able to make a referral to, say, Absolutely. Ready, Willing, and Able in Mississauga to support them there, and then be able to support them here in Oakville. That's amazing. Sean, you spoke so well about respect, and it's something I think in society in general we're lacking often now, but in particular the respect that we show to one another in a workplace. And how important is that, to bring that into the workplace and treat those living with a disability with the same amount of respect that you would every other employee?
you can't even measure it. It's so important. It's something that, you know, I grew up, I was brought up that you respect people and you speak to people with respect. And it's when I don't know what to do in a certain situation, or I don't know how to deal with a certain issue, respect has always been, like I mentioned, my compass. And it has always served me well. And I do not get caught up in these political correct terms of, you can't say disabled employee, you have to say employee with a disability. I try to avoid those sticky situations. My staff knew that I respected them, like everybody, all of my staff, and you build that rapport. It's a tremendous foundation. So when you have to change their hours, you have to change their shift, you ask them to do something different, or you have to discipline them. They know, based on your history of being respectful towards them, your actions are given value, and that's tremendously important. And it's two-way street, and it's something that every workplace needs to have.
You touched on the independence that it can give employees. I know when Mark Wafer talked about the first employee he hired 20 years ago, that man was able to save up enough money to buy a condo because he'd been able to have steady employment for 20 years at the Tim Hortons store. My friend Karina Scally, who I mentioned earlier, I did a roundtable on voting, and she gave me the best example of why people should vote is to pick issues that are important to you and then look at candidates who will represent those issues. And the two that were important to her were housing and employment. And I think those two go hand in hand, because without the employment, you can be living in precarious housing. So the impact on the individual to live with independence, to be able to be not living in precarious housing, I mean, that's huge for individuals and for us as a society, right?
Yeah, and it's something that, you know, it wasn't really touched on, and it's, you know, something that even in my own experience, we don't talk about it much, but, you know, when you think about the benefits to our community as far as finances and taxes, and you get employees, so instead of being on ODSP, I think it is, and maybe living in subsidized housing or what have you, they're now earning a wage, paying taxes, buying cars, or paying rent, or buying a house and paying taxes, and it has a positive benefit to our society from a financial aspect as well.
So it's a win for the business or the organization. It's a win for the country, and it's a win for the individual. So I don't see any other questions in the chat box. Sean, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to share your experience. And I think, I know this is being recorded, so I'm hopeful that we can get it out to the chambers of commerce and encourage employers across the region, and anyone who has joined us. I really encourage you to speak to your friends, to speak to businesses. And, you know, just when you're having conversations at a business, when you go in, ask them and encourage them to be hiring people who have a disability. It's so important, and an inclusive workforce makes such a difference. And I want to thank all of our panelists, and Sean, thank you for your keynote. And a huge shout out to Community Living Oakville and Xplore Employment and all of the people who do such amazing work. And also a shout out to those that you support who are making such a big difference in our community. So I know there's a new website, and it's maybe we can share it in the chat, and maybe it was already shared, I can't remember, but it's X, like just the X, xploreemployment.com. And Alexandra, I'm going to turn it over to you to close things off, and thank you for joining us.
Okay, thank you so much, Pam. And I would like to further extend my heartfelt thank you, of course, to all of our supportive employers, our guest speakers here today, and all of you attending today. I would also like to thank and acknowledge ODIN, again, the Ontario Disability Employment Network, for all of their work and advocacy towards inclusive employment here in Ontario and supporting this event today. ODIN is also going to be hosting an upcoming virtual conference on March 24th. So I hope that you all mark your calendars for that date. Rethinking Disability, Diversifying Your Workforce for employers all across Ontario. And this will be in partnership with us, Community Living Oakville. We invite interested employers also to join that event as well. And Jenny Parisi will send out more information to all attendees who are here today. I would also like to extend my gratitude and thank you, of course, to Jenny Parisi, who has led this employment team through these challenging times. Of course, we can imagine what COVID has done to all of us. And also Andrea Lee, who's currently on mat leave. And of course, our very talented employment team. So if we can just take a little moment quickly, I hope there's a way to show them here on the screen. So we can do a shout out to everyone. Here's Ali Ibrahim. Ali, do you want to say hi? I think you're on mute, Ali. Okay. If you're not able to say hi, perhaps you can give a wave. Thank you so much, Ali. Andre Dury. Andre, are you here? Is Andre here?
He is, but his camera's off. So I
Okay. Well, I just want to give a shout out to Andre Dury, Carolyn McCleister.
Hi, guys.
Oh, we hear you. Hi, Andre. Thank you for everything. Carolyn.
Hi.
Hi, Carolyn. Thank you. And also Tracy Morrow.
Hi, everybody.
And Lizelle. Is Lizelle here?
Hello.
I see you up top, Lizelle.
Hi.
Hi, Lizelle. Thank you for all that you do. We truly appreciate it. And then I also want to say, of course, last but not least, Pam, thank you so much for all you do. You've consistently advocated for the people we support in Community Living Oakville on all levels, both in our community and government level. And we appreciate your commitment to building an inclusive community, ensuring that people with a developmental disability have a voice and are valued in the workplace. So thank you, sincerely, heartfelt thank you, Pam. At this time, I would like to close this event, and I just want to say thank you so much for everyone that attended today. I hope you felt this valuable, and I hope there were some wonderful takeaways today. So thank you, everyone, for attending.